Beautiful India, the country where I was born. And even though I was raised in America, I am proud of my Indian heritage. India is a land known for its deep culture, values, traditions, meditation, yoga, diverse religions, and many languages. It is a country that has valleys, mountains, magnificent flowers, oceans, green forest, many delicious cuisines, spices, art, poetry, music, from the colorful costumes, jewelry, festivals, sculptures, scriptures, and temples make India the vibrant place that it is. The Indian people have a great admiration for nature and all the animals that roam their land. Bhumi Devi, who we consider as Mother Earth, always takes center stage in the lives of the Indian people. My expectations of India were always about the unity and love that people had for one another, and showing compassion to all sentient beings. What I discovered was shocking, and this is how my journey started. Mr. Chhaganlal Joshi, my grandfather, a freedom fighter who walked with Mahatma Gandhi side by side for the Salt March. They together got us freedom. They fought for human rights. And I am fighting for the animals. If he could do it, why can't I? I was a non-vegetarian. I ate everything under the sun. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Until I had my awakening, when I found out the truth. And once I knew the truth, I couldn't unknow it. I could no longer ingest fear, anxiety, pain, and torture in my body. And that's when I turned vegan overnight. I soon realized that being vegan was not enough. I had to take action and be the voice for the voiceless. My healing tree gave me an idea. Why not talk to your own people and go back to your motherland and find out the truth? If Lord Krishna had milk, why can't we? Why do we sacrifice animals in the name of God? Is milk the only source of calcium and proteins? Why is animal agriculture the main cause of global warming? Is India the land of Ahimsa?
It is time for India to say what she means and mean what she says.
So what you just saw was a yearly cultural tradition. And it's amazing to see how they climb up and break that clay pot. But what do you think that pot contained? It contained butter. It contained milk. And how do you think we obtained that milk? Do you know how cows and buffaloes are treated today?
What do our school books teach us? Oh, cows give milk. No, they don't. The first time that a cow has a baby, or a buffalo for that matter, she won't allow you to touch her udders, right? She just won't allow you to touch. So then how is it that we take the milk? Oh, tie her neck, tie her legs, tie her tail. So she can't kick, she can't hit you with her tail or with her head. And that's how she gives milk.
We say that it's our Gau Mata, and then we take away their milk, and this is how we say they give us milk. No, they are not giving us milk. We are stealing away their milk. It's very clear.
You see those chains? We tie them up and we take their milk. We steal it from them. They don't give it willingly.
They're really treated so terribly. The female's only value is to produce milk for their non-babies, for humans to have. And then once that value of reproduction's gone, they have to be killed off.
Dairy addiction is like the root kind of animal exploitation.
Vegetarians presume to say that we are animal lovers. We live cruelty-free. And that's the hypocrisy I want to point out, and that's what I'm saying. You paid for that glass of milk with your money, but that mother cow paid for it with her dignity, her freedom, her children, her blood, and her life.
They'll put hooks and things in the baby's nose to prevent them from nursing. They have their babies taken. They prevent the bond between mother and child. It's a violation of the female in every way.
Would you like it? Someone takes your child from you at birth and uses your milk for something else.
We believe that the human mother and the cow are separate beings. They are not. And if you treat with great respect the relation between the human mother and her baby, then how can you treat with disrespect the relationship between the cow and the calf?
We're denying the birthright of a baby to mother's milk. That's what we're doing.
Hi, so I'm in a dairy farm right now in India. It must be over 100 degrees and it's very hot. You can see there's no water here for the calves. This is a male calf, behind me is a female calf. You can see the rope, how it's tied to this pole, so they don't have much freedom. Also, their mothers are on the opposite side. They're separated. You see, they have to tie them away, otherwise she'll drink her mother's milk and there won't be for us. I never knew this. I drank milk all my life and I was disconnected. They can't afford to keep all these cows here. Where do you think these cows go when they stop making milk? The male calves that don't produce milk, what do you think that's happening to them? We need to think about this.
Not only have I seen mothers screaming, bellowing out for their babies on dairying camps, I've seen babies with tears streaming down their face as they're kept isolated in calf hutches.
If I believe in women's rights, I can't support the exploitation of another female, a cow, because she's exploited for the milk of her reproductive system.
The dairy industry is based on exploitation of the female reproductive system. The dairy mothers are artificially inseminated. Sometimes they'll even put chains around the baby's feet and rip the babies out.
Meat and dairy is the ultimate patriarchy. It's all based on rape. None of these animals are making love. They are all raped. In fact, the industry term is rape rack. Don't take my word for it, Google it.
Hi, I'm at a dairy farm in India, and right now, I'm at a stall. This stall is called a rape rack. That's right, that's the medical term that we're using to inseminate a cow.
They also put a glass rod in her private parts with semen, and they put their entire hand, manipulate literally the parts where to put semen, and the semen is collected from a male buffalo or cow. And of course, when this thing is done to a woman, what do you call it? Obviously, we call it rape. right? So we are doing this to the cows and buffaloes every single year. And we call them Gau Mata, and we are actually raping them every year. And people don't even give a shit about it.
A mom is a mom everywhere. And if a mom is sad when their child is killed due to war or gang violence or anything else, a mom that's a cow or a chicken, they're going to be really sad whenever their child is taken from them. What a mom experiences in the human world is not any different than what animals feel.
The mother knows what is happening to her child. She knows that my male child is being sent to the slaughterhouse.
I read that Times of India newspaper a year and a half ago in Ahmedabad. They sell them overnight to the slaughterhouse.
And if a cow is not giving milk, is abandoned. It's not just a happy cow sitting in the street. That's a cow that has 40, 50, 60 kilos of plastic in their stomach. Can you imagine the pain? It looks like it's a big, healthy cow. It is under enormous pressure from the gas, and they don't speak out. These are animals of predation, so they don't voice it because the tiger would get them if they heard them cry. Their eyes roll. Their eyes, they roll back in agony of pain that we can do something about. If we say, we love the holy cow.
We call it as the taste of India, calls ice creams, curd, milk, paneer, cheese, pizza. We see the product and use these names, so we're completely disconnected from what's happening there. And as vegans, we just want to inform people that this is happening, this is violent, this is unnecessary, and you can stop.
So please wake up. Please seek out the truth. Please go and ask these questions. How can you produce milk at this price?
The milk in India and around the world has the blood and suffering inside it. That's what you're drinking in India.
Dairy is scary. Dairy is cruel. Dairy is torture.
Dairy is basically liquid meat.
Milk is nothing but liquid meat.
Dairy is beef, of course, without a doubt.
So dairy industry is no different than the meat industry.
We are so cunningly manipulated and brainwashed into believing that animals are food.
We put them in tiny battery cages, hardly bigger than the hen's own body. She can't even spread a wing in this contraption, and she's crammed in there with a number of other chickens. We manipulate her body so that she produces way more eggs than is natural for a chicken. You know, today's commercially raised hens, for example, lay about 250 eggs. Their wild ancestor, the red jungle fowl, lays about 15 eggs a year.
So the animal dies 1 million deaths. And it takes the animal about 2 hours to die. 2 hours of being boiled, slit, skin removed, leg broken.
In slaughterhouses, or even on the factory farms and other places where they have to just abuse the animals all day or kill them or electroshock them or impregnate them against their will, these rape racks. But these workers have the highest rates of injury and among the highest rates of suicide, of alcoholism.
Not just the animals who we use for food, but if we start from the animals who we use for experiments, for work, for entertainment, as pets, for products, and then eventually as food. There is cruelty in every use.
Leather does not grow from the ground. Leather has to come from a life form.
In Mumbai, horses are being used to haul heavy carriages, to haul tourists all day and all night. And these horses, they're living their entire lives on pavement, working all day without a single drop of water, malnourished. They were just a bag of bones. And the use of Victorias for carriages is now banned. Elephants live so long, when they're in captivity, that entire duration is in chains. Elephants in captivity in India are used for things like circuses, in temples, for rides. And when they're not being used for rides, they're kept in chains.
There's no question that these non-human animals that we're talking about feel enormous pain. They suffer, they're intelligent beings, they have families, they have family structures, they have their lives.
The animals, they cry, they yell, they have body language. They are trying to avert the violence that's being imposed on them. But because we don't want to see that, or we might not see that, we fail to understand how much pain we're causing them.
Stop slaughtering animals to eat them and wear them, and stop slaughtering cows to drink their secretions and pretend that you're not harming them, because you are. You're murdering them. And you are a murderer until you stop doing that. That's it.
But once you are educated, it is up to you whether you're going to be ignorant or whether you're going to take a stand to make a change and not follow blindly what rituals have set for you.
There are so many religions in India, and we have so many rituals and traditions in our culture. The Hindus have Janmashtami, the Muslims have Eid, Sikhs have Guru Nanak Jayanti, and the Christians have Christmas. Every religion, knowingly or unknowingly, harm animals and our Mother Earth.
Why would God make us dependent on another species when he hasn't made any other species dependent on another species for milk?
Milk is something that is totally natural. If you're a calf and you're getting it from mom, who's a cow, but if you're a human baby, nature thought you would get milk from your mother, and that's the natural source.
Yeah, whether it's a cat, rat, horse, donkey, human being, cow, buffalo, elephant, giraffe, whatever. They produce milk only when they have a baby, right? And why has nature put that milk in the body of that mother? To nurture that baby. It's meant for a newborn baby to grow fast in a very short period of time. And this is what we should be taught in schools. And we're not.
Why all Jain and Hindu people are so much attached with all this kind of food? They can do 30 days fast, but they cannot stop one day dairy product.
Indians will turn vegan on their own because they have that sentiment already by virtue of their pre-existing spirituality. The sentiment that animals are living beings, that even our gods have taken forms of animals often. You have Matsavatar, you have Kurmavatar. All kinds of improbable animals have hosted our gods. Once you are spiritual, you just cannot bear to consume dairy or meat.
Buddhism, Jainism, Hinduism, in this position that we are actually the leading exporters of beef, of leather, of milk in the world.
Animals being exported in the world, the two biggest concentrations are meat in China and dairy in India.
And you want to be known as a greatly spiritual country, and yet the killing and the growing for killing is higher than anywhere else. So what's so spiritual? Now halal means that you pray over the meat and that you kill it in a way that the animal doesn't feel pain and you don't kill one in front of the other. So there is no halal because they just slit the throat and throw it into a pile to die. And chatka means that you kill it in one go by slicing the head off. But none of the butchers have got the kind of energy that it takes to slice the head off. So it's basically just slitting the throat. What they call modern slaughterhouses is simply you take an electric prod and then you just prodding it and prodding it and prodding it and prodding it so the animal screams and screams and screams and screams and it's never unconscious till it becomes paralyzed and then you slit its throat.
In fact, in every religious book that I have read at least, and I've read the Quran over and over many times with translations, and I don't see anything to do with killing another being. There is a sacrifice. Sacrifice meaning sacrificing something that you love. It could be anything. It's the sentiment. I think it's a misconception. And I think as a Muslim, I am proud to say that I'm not a part of that. And I hope that in time to come, that all my other fellow Muslims will also realize that and stop this killing.
And India, worshipping the sacred cow, the demand for milk is so high. And milk is wasted on so many mindless procedures that it becomes cruel and unusual and totally unnecessary.
Or in Jainism or in Hinduism also,
when they pour on their idols, they use lot of dairy, milk, ghee, curd and other products.
They take gallons and gallons of milk and they pour it on the statue of a god. In fact, the biggest hypocrisy I ask people is, you actually torture and abuse a cow and steal her milk, then you build a statue in the shape of a cow and you pour the actual living cow's milk on the statue and you say good things are supposed to happen to you.
We can't justify that at all. Just because it is written in the religious books doesn't mean that we have right to steal away the milk. Not at all.
Do you think India is the land of Ahimsa?
India? No. Nope. Not at all. Nope, we're not. India is not a land of Ahimsa.
So we have to ask ourselves, is this violence really aligned with our culture and tradition? The most frequent question asked is if Lord Krishna had milk and ghee. Why can't we?
Why do you again compare yourself to God? Why are you are not God. Yeah, you know what? God chooses what he wants to do, what he does not want to do. You and me are not God. Let's stop playing God. Let's just be who we are. We are humans.
Lord Krishna's stories were all from 5,000 years ago. And a lot of stories are symbolic.
Did you know that Krishna also stole clothes of a bunch of girls and hid on a tree? Would you do that?
Lord Krishna lifted a mountain with his little finger, which means that if you believe in Lord Krishna, he will shelter you from the thunderstorm that's happening around you. So it's a symbolic story. It doesn't mean that everyone should be going and lifting mountains with their little fingers.
And so if you can be like Krishna and you can lift a Govardhan, then you can do what Krishna does.
Lord Krishna danced on the hood of a seven-headed snake, Kaliya. So that means that he has overcome the seven chakras. So he has opened the seven chakras and he is now enlightened as a child.
And Krishna, as a little boy, he himself shepherded cows to and from the forest and the grazing lands, and never once did he beat them or whack them or, God forbid, rape them. None of that happened. But understanding what those rituals are is so much more important. My non-Hindu patients are quicker to adapt to vegan diets than my Hindu patients. And that is paradoxical, but it makes sense. Because we have rituals and rituals and rituals without realizing the cost of those rituals to the gentle cow and her calf.
For our Indian festivals, pujas, and rituals, we can always use coconut milk or coconut water or simply water. For example, when bathing our gods, we can always use coconut milk or coconut water because coconut is considered the food that symbolizes God. And when lighting our divas, we can always use coconut oil. This way, we're aligning our values with our actions, and we can live in an ahimsic world.
And the time of the Lord Krishna was the different. At that time, we believe that we don't use cow for our selfish reason, for the commercial purpose, for fulfillment of our greed. The cow is a part of our life, our family member.
We live in different times right now. So let's follow what is the most ahimsa way of life at this point in time.
If Lord Krishna were here today, Would they approve of this violence? And not just with cows, buffaloes, and goats, but with all living sentient beings. Should we be following traditions blindly? Or should we find the God within ourselves and have reverence for all life? I am back after 18 years. I can still feel his presence. Mr. Chhaganlal Joshi, my grandfather, a freedom fighter who walked with Mahatma Gandhi side by side for the Salt March. They together got us freedom. If he could do it, why can't I? They fought for human rights, and I am fighting for the animals.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. But as far as animals are concerned, there is injustice everywhere.
I am the granddaughter of a freedom fighter. His name was Chhaganlal Joshi. He fought with Gandhiji on social justice issues. And today, I follow in his footsteps. I am also a freedom fighter, an animal freedom fighter. Fighting for the greatest social justice issue talked about today, speciesism. And today, the Animal Liberation March will be a turning point in India's journey towards adopting veganism as the new norm and becoming the Ahimsa country we were meant to be. I wasn't always raised vegan like many of you, but when I knew better, I did better. And once you know the truth, you can't unknow it. As long as animals don't have to die, the sun will continue to shine on the Indian sky. Thank you.
Mahatma Gandhi is the one who not only just learned about Ahimsa, but he practiced Ahimsa in everything he did.
He would go on his walk to the sea crying. He would weep. He's the one who said famously that you judge a nation's civilization based on how its animals are treated.
Over the centuries, whether it's Leonardo da Vinci, now Leonardo DiCaprio, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, they all say the same thing. If we don't respect animals, we will never respect each other. So it's connected. You cannot separate them.
You know, just ditch the dairy. It's not that difficult. There's so many alternatives today that didn't exist back in Gandhi's day. I know today Gandhi would be vegan. Absolutely no doubt. Absolutely no doubt.
I think India is going to be a great vegan country one day, and Gandhi will be very happy. They are reminded of how impressive a person he really was.
Gandhi's Khadi movement was such a simple thing that he did about 100 years ago. He convinced the people of India to change their clothes from British clothes to Khadi clothes in 1919. That's when he initiated the Khadi movement.
This is the original spinning wheel that my grandfather, Chhaganlal Joshi, used during the Khadi movement.
Within a dozen years, he had bankrupted the textile mills in Manchester, and the British government was on its knees begging to negotiate with him. So it was a simple act that every Indian could do. And everyone knew when you're wearing Khadi, you're part of the same movement. So it brought the people of India together. It was a spiritual act. but it was a substantial act because the textile industry was the largest industry in England at that time. So today, if we change what we eat, going vegan is exactly the same as the Khadi movement from 100 years ago.
So that was recharging. So ever since I've gone vegan and plant-based, and especially when I started incorporating smoothies and green juices and incorporating more raw food in my life, I felt so much energy. And when I went to India, I got to meet some amazing athletes who don't eat any meat, fish, dairy, and eggs, and they have no protein deficiency. They are so recharged. They have so much energy, stamina, and endurance. So plant power, baby. Take a look.
My name is Chhaganlal Joshi. I am a software engineer by profession, a mountaineer by passion, and a vegan by compassion. Veganism gave me an edge in mental peace and mental focus. I was able to go to sleep knowing that I did not contribute to the cruelty or killing of any animals, and I was able to have a clear mind that I was not being cruel to any sentient animals on the planet.
All the vegetarian sources have complete protein. My knees used to hurt a lot after my run. I couldn't walk after the 42 kilometers. I used to just sit. But after my first marathon, when I went vegan, I sit for 10 minutes and I'm okay. Like, I'm completely healed.
Now I'm a proud vegan marathoner, 42 kilometers. I was never into running, but just because I turned vegan, all this positive energy started coming along my way.
I was keen about fitness. I was keen about peaceful life. Yoga, martial arts, calisthenics, parkour, gymnastics. I went vegan. I am better than before. In peaceful life, strength, my focus is better than before. So everything is better than before.
Hi, my name is Abhishek. They call me the vegan beast. Yes, I am a beast who is made only on plants. And who says you get protein only from chicken, mutton, eggs, fish and all the animal products. And who says you need to eat them to have a good physique. Look at me. I am a bodybuilder and I don't eat meat at all. Meat is just a marketing gimmick, as Arnold says in his new movie Game Changers. Dairy and animal products will give you only one thing, that is fat and diseases. There is a lot of options for protein in a whole food plant-based diet. So you don't need meat to build muscle.
The protein myth is that we need lots and lots of protein to build muscle and for our health. And what that protein myth has done is caused people to eat a lot of animal foods.
Why have we started eating meat in the first place? Yeah, we've been bombarded with protein, and we think, oh yes, that's what we need. So we started eating a lot more meat than we ever did.
When's the last time you heard of anybody being in the hospital with protein deficiency? what they're really getting diseases of is fiber deficiency is leading to things like constipation, which leads to diverticulosis and diverticulitis. Fiber deficiency also leads to colon cancer and obesity. And whether it's 1,500 or 2,000 calories, whatever's right for your size, if you're eating that many calories of brown rice and broccoli, you'll get enough protein.
We are definitely not designed to eat animal foods. People like to point to their canines. Human canines are not sharp. They are enough to bite into the skin of an apple, but they are not enough to tear into the skin and hide of an animal, or to bite through feathers, or to chew off bones, the raw flesh. And even if we could do that, what are the other tools we have to help us? Our fingernails are not claws animals that eat animals have. Our fingernails are flat, and if they grow long, they curl. We've all seen the Guinness Book of World Records pictures with the long curly fingernails. They're of no practical use whatsoever. So clearly our hands are not meant to rip apart an animal. Carnivores do not have the ability to chew. Our jaws move sideways and chew. Carnivores tend to take a bite out of something and sort of swallow it whole. Our digestive systems are much, much longer compared to the short tract of the digestive system of a carnivore. So we are definitely not designed to eat animal foods.
I mean, no other species in the world cooks its food, and no other species drinks milk of other species. Only humans do, and they get diseases.
American Academy of Nutrition has now given a statement that plant-based diets, without any animal foods, without any meat, dairy, or eggs, is perfectly suitable for every stage of human life. It specifically said for pregnancy, it's perfectly fine. For infancy, toddlerhood, adolescence, and adulthood, it is suitable for every stage of human life.
There is one vitamin that we do need. We need vitamin B12. You need it for healthy nerves, you need it for healthy blood, and it's not made by animals or plants, it's made by bacteria.
There are two sources of iron. Heme iron, which comes from animal foods, and non-heme iron, the mineral found in plant foods. It is not a good idea to get high amounts of heme iron. Heme iron is associated with higher rates of diabetes. Non-heme iron comes from beans especially, such as lentils, nuts and seeds, and leafy greens.
You are what you eat, and you are also what you eat.
I drink milk or I eat dairy products or I eat meat, and all of a sudden I have these substances coming into my body that are not healthy, they're toxic.
The World Health Organization says processed meat is cancer causing. That means bacon, hot dogs, the way people eat meat, it's cancer causing. And yet they still shill for meat on TV programs. In the newspapers, they do it too. Imagine if a newspaper did a front page article on what are the best cigarettes for kids. They'd be run out of town. And yet major newspapers do, oh, here are the best hot dogs type stories, and nobody says anything, even though hot dogs are cancer causing.
Now, meat, especially chicken, the consumption is all-time high. We are producing over 4.5 million tons of chickens each year, which has tripled in the last 17-18 years. So our population has not tripled, our chicken production has tripled. That means we are consuming more. Fast food outlets have replaced our traditional Indian food outlets. In chicken factory farming, raised in 45 days, all those stress hormones, antibiotics are coming into your system, and all those fats. People think that skinless chicken breast is actually good. It's 23% calories come from fats, very close to beef, which is 29%. But there you go. You have these foods which are high in fats, high in saturated fats, high in cholesterol, and that's why we are seeing these problems in India with heart disease, hypertension, and diabetes.
Indian people need to wake up. Don't patronize these fast food restaurants. Don't walk into these traps. That's what I call these fast food American joints. They're traps. They might as well be drug pushers. They hook you on this unhealthy food that is packed with sugar, salt, and fat, which are known to be addictive. And so you eat it and then you want to eat it again. You become an addict. Guess what? There's no better customer than an addict. They come back over and over again. People of India, you're smarter and better than that. Don't buy the lie. Stay away from the Western diet.
Our kids are eating a lot of processed food, a lot of fast food. Pizza has become the #1 food for our kids because they are seeing these big banners and televisions and newspaper ads everywhere, big boards of and cheese and pizza fully laden with cheese. And cheese is 70% calories from fats. So cheese is the #1 source of saturated fat in our diet, and our kids are loving these pizzas and chicken, and we are seeing this disturbing trend.
We need to wake the people of India up to the reality because they're being told a lie. And guess who's suffering? They are. They're developing all the diseases that the West has brought them now. And that's not a gift, okay? That's a poison pill. That's a Trojan horse. They need to wake up and realize that adopting this Western-style diet is killing them.
Dairy consumption is so high. Our milk production has doubled in the last 17-18 years from 80 million tons to 165 million tons. Per capita consumption of milk in India is 337 grams per person per day, which is pretty high if you compare the world's per capita consumption of milk is 229 grams per day. And we are consuming way too much dairy.
Dairy products are part of Indian tradition and a tradition in other countries as well, but unfortunately they present real risks for us. The first thing is if you take a glass of milk, about half the calories in that glass of milk are nothing but fat.
Cheese is really caloric dense. 1 gram of fat has 9 calories, and just imagine that if you are consuming so much fats in cheese and chicken, you cannot burn that. All these calories are building up and they are eventually turning up into fats, and obesity is rising. This is the reason why we are even seeing type 2 diabetes very young age.
But in India, we're seeing something troubling. We're seeing vegetarians have more and more diabetes, and I believe that's because of the dairy products that they're consuming, as well as the overuse of oils. And those two things together are driving the diabetes epidemic.
And India has become the diabetic capital of the world because the consumption of meat and dairy is rising at epidemic proportion.
Sugar and carbohydrates are not the cause of diabetes. High blood sugar is the result of diabetes. The cause of diabetes is lack of insulin or insulin resistance. And so we need to understand the cause of insulin resistance is fat. Now, fat is found in oil, ghee, butter, but fat is also found in all animal products.
It's also bad fat. It's the saturated fat that's linked to heart disease and linked to Alzheimer's disease. And doctors like me are afraid that we are sowing the seeds of more and more epidemics all the time. Not just diabetes, not just heart disease, but prostate cancer, Alzheimer's disease, the things that come from eating a diet that's loaded with dairy products.
The other thing that dairy has, similar to other animal foods, is a hormone called IGF-1.
IGF-1, that is insulin-like growth factor, that is really for the baby calf to become big. That actually interferes with the insulin in our body.
This hormone raises risk of getting cancer. It also promotes cancer. So if you have cancer, it grows faster. So this is present in dairy just as much as in meat.
Today, milk is poison. It's not nectar. We have selected the cows to produce more and more milk. So now the cows are so big and they're producing so much milk. So literally when we drink that milk, it's trying to make us grow that fast. Cells are trying to grow and it will become cancer.
Cancer is a problem at the cellular level where something goes wrong with your genetic code. So something happens at the genetic level where a protein is made and causes the cell to go out of control. The cell no longer belongs with the group, it is a rogue cell. It commands its own blood supply and it becomes a cancer. And from there it can travel and kill. when you have a rise in cancer is because your immune system got overwhelmed. There are several reasons for this. The biggest one being diet. The protein casein is the most carcinogenic substance literally on the planet.
Inside cheese are chemicals that are coded in the dairy protein called casein. The casein protein breaks up, releases morphine-like compounds that are called casomorphins. The casomorphins attach to the very same receptors on the brain that morphine attaches to, and they have a mild narcotic effect. Am I saying that cheese could be addicting? That's exactly what I'm saying.
The Indian diet already has a great basis for a plant-based diet. And if they would just do a few things, get rid of the ghee, get rid of the oil, get rid of the fried foods, it would really improve the diet and the health of India.
Ghee continues to be used in Indian cuisine, and I really wish people would move away from it, because when we analyze it, it is loaded with saturated fat. That's the kind of fat that raises your cholesterol. It's also the kind of fat that's linked to Alzheimer's disease. There are many techniques for cooking that don't use ghee at all. The food is a little lighter, a little tastier, and certainly much healthier.
But with ghee, there's no protein, it's pure fat.
Ghee is an animal product made out of dairy. It's got high saturated fat.
Once I found that there was oxidized cholesterol in ghee, then I wanted to find out, what does oxidized cholesterol do to the body? And there was heart disease was on there. There was some diseases that this oxidized cholesterol was attached to. I saw some Alzheimer's increased studies with oxidized cholesterol. So according to my research, it's not something I want to put into my body. And there's also the cruelty element of torturing animals, cows, to get this secretion.
There's now a vegan ghee. From our Goshala, we have 50 coconut trees. So coconut oil goes in there.
And I practice plant-based Ayurveda. Ghee is used for a lot of ailments. Ayurveda recommended it in the therapeutic version. But right now, the way we live in the 21st century, we actually don't need ghee at all, because it's full of dioxins, it's full of hormones, and it's just pure fat. And the kind of lifestyle we lead today, we don't need to eat ghee.
More you consume dairy, more is this acidic nature of dairy products. This is making the calcium go out of your bone a lot more than you consume.
In fact, University of Chicago researchers went to India and they actually showed by DNA analysis that most Indians, no matter where they're from, whether it's north or south, have an intolerance to dairy. When you say lactose intolerant, you really mean normal. And when you say other, it's lactase persistence. That is the abnormality. So let's say when someone is normal, they will react in a bad way to lactose.
Dairy has so many different things in it. Either there is antibiotic, or there's urea as a preservative, or an animal has eaten pesticide-laden grass. And there's also higher estrogen, because the milk is also produced when a cow or a buffalo is pregnant. And this estrogen obviously is going to be secreted in the milk and is going to interfere with the estrogen in our body. And there are two strong links that are found, are one with the breast cancer, second with the prostate cancer, and one more condition called as PCOD, that is polycystic ovarian disease. This is directly linked to the hormones in the milk.
Dairy, unfortunately, also is very contaminated in India, particularly the ghee, which is mixed with animal fat.
So when we consume milk, or especially when we consume cheese, which is concentrated milk, you're going to get a concentrated dose of those toxins.
If you look at the incidence of dairy use in India over the last 30 years, it's nearly doubled. And concurrent with that, we've seen some interesting changes in Indian health. Heart disease has nearly doubled in that same time frame, and diabetes has nearly doubled in that same time frame. And obesity is becoming quite rampant in India now as well.
Cardiovascular disease, I'm speaking particularly of heart disease, also prostate cancer and many other chronic diseases. We think, what can we do to tackle that? Item one is to get the animal products off your plate, and specifically dairy products.
It's actually the first thing I tell people to stop when they are transitioning to a plant-based diet. I say, if you're going to do one thing, stop dairy first. It's full of saturated fat, and for me as a vascular surgeon, that's one of the main things that causes atherosclerosis or heart disease.
But in the same way as you can narrow the arteries to the heart by eating fat and cholesterol, and you can narrow the arteries to the brain by eating fat and cholesterol, the same thing happens in the arteries to a man's private parts.
Most men over late 40s have erectile dysfunction. And it's all based on cholesterol, which becomes plaque, clogging the vessels. That's why erectile dysfunction is a precursor to heart disease.
And that's the first place for many men that they have symptoms. Here's the issue. If a man has ED now, that's a sign he will be having a heart attack or a stroke in the near future.
But now with lifestyle medicine, we are seeing that within 3 weeks, their blood sugar level comes down, their cholesterol goes down, their insulin resistance comes down, their cells become more insulin sensitive, and in majority of the cases, the people are completely off their medications and they are off insulin, and we are seeing even results in type 1 diabetics.
In our research studies, we use completely plant-based diets. We get away from the dairy products and the meat to help people tackle weight problems or diabetes or heart disease. And one of the side effects, if I can put it that way, is their erectile dysfunction goes away too. And I'll tell you, they really appreciate that as well.
Why don't we just go back to our roots?
We should be eating more our traditional Indian diet, which is lentil-based. Brown rice with lentils, brown rice poha, brown rice idli would be a great option for you. And look at our South Indian upma and millet. Millet is such a great source of calcium and protein. So if we bring all these core cereals back in our diet and get rid of all these Western products from our diet, pizza, chicken, we don't want that.
When I look at Indian food, I really see simple jewels that are transformed into the most wonderful cuisine that you can imagine. When I say simple jewels, I mean things like lentils and spinach and rice, these humble, simple foods.
Traditional Indian diet consists of roti, sabji, dal, chawal, that's, vegetable and bread and rice and pulses.
But somehow they are transformed through the magical cuisine into really wonderful, wonderful foods. The only danger is that these foods can also be a little corrupted by adding a little too much oil or adding dairy products and things like that.
It's very much ingrained in us that we need dairy for the calcium. But there are so many other sources of calcium which are far healthier. A lot of seeds like sesame seeds and chia seeds, green leafy vegetables, walnuts and almonds have lots of calcium. And they don't have the saturated fat, they don't have the natural hormones, IGF-1, and they don't have the added hormones that the commercial dairies these days will have. So you can get your calcium, have strong bones, and you have no need for milk.
Many Indians figure that the spicy foods need something to cool it down, so they figure dairy and yogurt are a way to cool it down. There has been a cultural wisdom that has been passed down that yogurt is good for us because of the fermentation and probiotics. Traditionally, because there was no refrigeration, yogurt was a way to preserve cow's milk for a few days at least. We can honor this tradition by making vegan yogurt from scratch using soy milk, almond milk, cashew milk, oat milk, and fermenting it in the traditional way using probiotics or a starter culture. We can also buy vegan yogurt with an added probiotic culture.
Soy milk is actually a very good replacement for cow's milk products. And some people are a little bit nervous about soy because they have heard a myth that there are hormones in soy. What there are in soy is there are compounds called isoflavones, and they do in fact attach to the estrogen receptor in a woman's body. But rather than causing breast cancer, they actually attach to the receptor and turn it off a little bit, preventing breast cancer. And if a woman has had breast cancer in the past, soy helps reduce the likelihood of recurrence by about 30%. And the same is true for men. For men who consume soy products, their risk of cancer is diminished as well. So the compounds in soy are actually helpful.
We are 1.4 billion people here in India, and with an increasing population rate, we can lead to a major environmental catastrophe.
Global warming is caused by actually two things. One is greenhouse gas emissions, which is carbon dioxide emissions from fossil fuel burning, carbon dioxide emissions from deforestation, methane emissions from cows and goats. But it's also caused by us preventing forests from coming back.
Methane levels have spiked hugely because of coal, rice, and meat. We can't do anything about coal at the moment, nor can we do it about rice. But certainly meat, I mean, for God's sake, even a chicken emits 6 kilos of methane. So if you're going to aim at being the highest producer of chickens, of milk, of eggs, this is the wrong direction.
Methane is a greenhouse gas that's produced predominantly from animal agriculture. So ruminant animals, cows, goats, produce a tremendous amount of methane through their digestion. It's a natural part of their process. And methane is a really potent greenhouse gas. It's more potent at trapping heat in the atmosphere than CO2. CO2 is measured on a 100-year time frame. It's kind of like the benchmark gas that we all measure against. But methane has a global warming potential 86 times higher, more potent, more powerful at trapping heat than CO2 does on a 20-year time frame. And the reason why that's an important distinction to make is that when we talk about climate change, we always talk about a 100-year time frame. But the reality is we don't have 100 years to deal with climate change. We don't really even have 20 years to deal with climate change. It's something we need to deal with immediately. Animal agriculture is the leading producer of methane gas. So if we were to stop animal agriculture, we'd be able to buy ourselves the time needed to deal with the larger long-term gases like CO2. But it's not just methane. You know, the leading producer of methane in India is livestock. It's about 2/3 of the methane is produced from livestock.
Animal agriculture is responsible for 87% of greenhouse gas emissions annually.
Say what?
Animal agriculture is responsible for 87% of greenhouse gas emissions annually.
The really inconvenient truth is animal agriculture is the leading destroyer of our planet. It is the leading cause of habitat destruction, wildlife extinction, not to mention human world hunger and human disease. And they're just not talking about it, they meaning the establishment. It is the biggest crisis of our time, and we are just scratching the surface because we don't want to look at the number one cause of what's destroying our planet, the consumption of meat and dairy, because people don't want to face themselves, they don't want to change their habits, they don't want to look in the mirror.
They're just walking time bombs. Anybody who's a meat eater is destroying the planet with every single bit of meat he eats. And it's unfair. We punish human beings who kill other human beings in the singular. Hello, this meat eater is destroying people in the collective. I don't want my life destroyed because somebody else is eating me.
India has suffered from some of the worst deforestation in the world. About 95% of India's old growth forest has been cleared for agriculture to make room for livestock primarily, but also to make room for crops. And many of those crops are fed to non-human animals. About 50% of the corn grown in India is fed to non-human animals. So just right there alone, if everyone in India went vegan, there would be a surplus of food. So in a nation that suffers from food scarcity and hunger, those people would have access to food. The food would be more affordable. You would also see a decrease in water pollution. Animals produce 10 to 14 times more waste than human beings do. When you think about 1.3 billion people in India and the amount of waste they're producing, and then you multiply that by 14 times, you're dealing with a huge amount of waste. Water consumption would go down dramatically. Livestock consume most of the water in any given country, including India. So the impact to the environment, to human health, to the prosperity of a nation would be phenomenal.
We have no forest left because all the cattle are going into the forest and eating all the young shoots. You have no water left because the cattle have to drink. You have no land left.
The rate at which we're killing wild animals is so fast that if we continue doing this, by 2026 they'll be virtually all gone. That's how fast we're killing them. We are now deploying big data software and GPS hardware technologies to find the last remaining fish in the ocean. Otherwise, fishing fleets cannot catch any fish, so they need to know where to go and catch them.
and we stab and suffocate 1 billion ocean animals every 8 hours. The oceans are dying in our time. All our fisheries will be dead, the lungs and the arteries of the earth. And most people would know that oceans sequester more CO2 than all the forests of the world put together. 10,000 entire species are wiped out every year because of the actions of one species. And we now face the 6th mass extinction in cosmological history. If any other organism did this, a biologist would call it a virus.
If we continue doing this, deploying technology to find the last remaining animals and kill them, if we go to every last remaining forest and cut it to graze animals for livestock, we're going to kill everything.
Right now, we're in the largest mass extinction the planet's seen in 66 million years since the dinosaurs died. More species are going extinct now than any other time in the last 66 million years. That's huge. We're losing potentially 100 species per day. That's plants, animals, and insects. And mammals, big megafauna, charismatic megafauna people care about, like elephants and rhinos. This biodiversity loss, this species extinction, has the potential to collapse ecosystems entirely.
More than the 7.6 billion human beings, we kill about 76 billion animals every year. And that doesn't take into account the 1 to 3 trillion sea animals. When we stop raising those 76 billion animals and killing them every year, we actually reduce our load on the earth by a factor of 6. Because right now we are extracting 6 times as much food as we really need, and taking 5 of that and feeding it to our animals.
So we're growing enough food right now to feed between 10 and 15 billion people on the planet. There's about 7.7 billion people on the planet right now. So we are growing enough food to feed everybody. There's about 800 million hungry people in the world who are either on the verge of starvation or aren't getting enough calories per day. The fact that we feed half of the world's grain to non-human animals is a problem. We are growing enough food, we're just feeding it to the wrong animals. We're feeding it to non-human animals. And there's a feed conversion ratio that's really important. 1 kilo of grain does not produce 1 kilo of meat or 1 kilo of milk. To produce 1 kilo of beef takes about 16 kilos of grain. So we could stop world hunger.
When India drops dairy, India will become the dominant world power. Because whichever culture, whichever society, whichever economy goes truly plant-based will dominate the world, because that's exactly what needs to happen for the planet to survive. And India is already halfway there, because India shuns meat in general, historically, traditionally. So if they just kick the dairy, India will emerge as the leading world power.
India in particular is in this very unique situation. India is one of the largest economies in the world. I think it's 4th or 5th economy in the world. It has one of the world's largest populations as well. So what Indians decide to do will shape the whole world. People follow what India does. It's a spiritual center of the whole world. So I think Indians realizing the power that they have, the potential that they have, and the responsibility they have is a really powerful, amazing thing. And so I'm really excited for the whole world, because I see India waking up to this information. I see that more than any other culture in the world, India is primed to hear this message because of this deep history with Ahimsa, with nonviolence, with the Sacred Mother, with the veneration for the beauty and innocence of other animals. So I'm really excited for the future and what's to come. Throughout human history and politics, we kind of see this pendulum swing. We go from ice age to warm spells. We see if the government goes far right, it swings to far left. And I see India doing the same thing with diet. A historically vegetarian society has swung towards eating more meat in the last 50 years. But I see it's going to swing the other way. It's going to bypass vegetarianism. It's going to go full vegan. That's the exciting thing. If we can keep that pendulum swinging towards compassion. I think that, again, you have a history and a foundation of ahimsa, of nonviolence, of doing no harm. That's perfect. That's veganism.
If we just eliminated the animal products, we could live in a world of abundance. We could reforest the earth. We could then sequester the carbon. We could then combat climate change. We could also feed starving children. We could really have a land of peace, a land of ahimsa. We just need to make this one simple change. and we can do it.
So in fact, I call this transformation that's happening, the transformation going from a Homo sapiens to Homo Ahimsa. Because Homo sapiens is the name that we have given ourselves, which is actually kind of arrogant because we call ourselves sapiens, which means wise. You will never see a wise person going around saying, I'm wise. Wisdom always comes with humility. So as a species, the Homo sapiens name has to go if we are to survive. You'll be known as Homo Ahimsa.
Ahimsa, the most meaningful word ever written. And this word originated from our country, our motherland of India. This word means non-violence to all living beings in everything we think, say, and do.
The real ahimsa starts at our tongue. That starts from there. Once the train starts from the tongue, the demand for these products is there. Then to say the government should ban Go Hatya, this is not the answer. Once the train heads out from the tongue, you cannot stop it.
Ahimsa, non-violence to any living being. It is a beautiful word, not because it describes our nationality, our politics, our religion, our diet, or our lifestyle, but because it describes our character.
Ahimsa is a core philosophy of Hinduism.
The word ahimsa, it started in India.
Another word for ahimsa is caring, kindness, love, mercy, protectiveness.
Any life form, humans and non-human, not to kill them, not to harm them, not to oppress them, not to enslave them, not to slaughter them.
Ahimsa is actually a language of every heart.
Ahimsa is core spirituality and therefore authentic veganism.
This should be the first country to go vegan. Because I felt like everybody I met had ahimsa sewn in their genes. Everybody I met was kind. Everybody I met was sweet and saying with each other. You could see the young men being nice to each other. Like there wasn't the attitude a lot of times you see in the United States.
Without ahimsa, we are predators. Brutish, boorish bullies.
The land of Ahimsa, in my world, is a land where all beings are free.
The way to get back to ahimsa is to stop doing harm to animals.
Our land is a land of non-violence, land of Buddha, land of Gandhi. We stressed that, we don't want to harm anyone. So why do we want to eat a diet that harms us, harms the animals, harms the environment, harms our family members?
Animal use is animal abuse.
Violence we must stop.
Ahimsa is the act of compassion and kindness, not just non-violence. So when you stop at non-violence, it doesn't make you compassionate and kind. In Hindi, we have a beautiful word, karuna, being able to feel anguish when someone else feels anguish.
Each and every individual in this world has the opportunity to vote 3 times a day by what they put in their mouth.
This is the way where we all live together with love and harmony with all beings on this planet.
And we are a country who has a great culture. We have our values. And if we show ahimsa towards animals, towards our fellow human beings, towards our environment, we can make this world a beautiful place to live in.
We are now transitioning from a predator species to a caretaker species.
It is time for India to reclaim her spiritual land of Ahimsa, that beautiful place where all living beings meet in compassion.
In every country and joining together, it's like Game of Thrones. We all have to come together. We all have to drop these illusory differences and come together to fight the greatest fight, and to be true warriors of the heart. Yeah, I really believe in India and I love the Indians and I know that we can do this.
India has religiosity in its soil. You cannot talk to the Indian people in a language of ideology. Indians won't listen to ideology, but Indians will listen to the language of love, compassion, spirituality.
roots. Just go back to our roots. And that's how we can make India a land of ahimsa again.
During my journey, I got to meet some amazing vegan entrepreneurs here in the US and in India.
I'm the founder of Akaju Cashew Yogurt. It's a vegan cashew-based yogurt company based in Houston, Texas. So I'm a chemical engineer by profession, and I had no plans of starting any kind of business. 4 years ago, I turned vegan, and what I missed most was good, creamy, low-sugar yogurt. I didn't like any of the yogurt that you could find in the stores, so I started making yogurt on my own. I make plain yogurt. The rest of them are flavored fruit in the bottom style yogurts. Akaju is a Tupian word. Tupi is a language that was spoken in Brazil. They discovered cashews, so they called cashews Akaju. And since my yogurt is mostly cashew-based, I called it Akaju.
Seth Tibbett, founder of the Tofurkey Company in Hood River, Oregon. We make everything based on organic tempeh or tofu, soy products, and then we combine it with other bean flours and vital wheat gluten, spices, but everything is 100% vegan, non-GMO, and delicious.
My name is Abhishek Sinha. I'm co-founder and CEO of Good Dot. The core team of the company are primarily driven by their love for animals. So we thought that plant-based meat is a great space to be to ameliorate the problems and the pain points of the animals, so to say. So that was a very simple and potent driving force for Good Dot. We started working on the project since 2013, and in 2016 the company was incorporated.
I have always been a very big fan of Earthling Ed. Like Earthlings, where all Earthlings are respected.
There are so many cruelty-free choices we can make. So why harm others when we don't have to? We have dairy-free milk, cheese, yogurt, ice cream. We're also making mock meats that taste delicious. Even cruelty-free clothing and cosmetics.
Hi, I'm Purvi Doshi and I'm a fashion designer for about 25 years now. And I live in Ahmedabad and I have a store in Ahmedabad. Knowingly or unknowingly, we are part of something very unethical and cruel. And that day, we all together decide not to work with silk. That was the end of silk in my fashion. Finally, I decided to work with khadi, which was hand-woven and hand-spun fabric of my country and which provides employment to millions of people. My employees and fashion interns that used to work with me, they got aware about the unethical side of fashion. They got a beautiful vision of cruelty-free and clean and kind fashion. Fashion cannot be at the cost of any other living being. We must learn to coexist.
Namaste, I'm Palak and I'm the founder of Vegan First, India's first and largest vegan magazine and solutions space, which started out in 2016. We are very blessed and honored and grateful to be able to contribute to this movement. Also with our annual event, the Vegan India Conference, which takes place year on year. Thank you for sharing this journey with us.
So what are the solutions? Well, it's so simple to switch to plant-based dairy products. They're so compassionate, healthy, healing for the planet, and taste great.
Most people don't drink milk by the glass. They use it in applications like coffee and tea and kheer and all of these recipes that dairy is really prevalent in. None of these plant-based dairy companies out there have solved for that purpose. They've solved for a health drink. We wanted to solve for dairy as it was used, not necessarily as just something you could drink out of the bottle, but something you would use in your coffee and tea and applications.
If I'm finding it difficult, others will find it difficult also. When I didn't get stuff for myself, I realized that this is a very difficult thing, If I'm going to tell people not to have dairy, soy milk, almond milk, oat milk, rice milk, cashew milk, we got hemp milk. So now there's no excuse.
With all the violence that is going on in the world today, there is a ray of hope in the form of organizations, foundations, and sanctuaries who have dedicated their people and their resources to making the world a compassionate place to all living beings.
The
SPCA stands for Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. It's an international organization, and most of the countries of the world have now adapted the SPCAs all over their own countries. In India, there are quite a few SPCAs, although most of them are private, so we don't have at the moment any government SPCAs. The SPCA that I run at the moment is private. Most of the SPCAs in India are private organizations. SPCA receives funding mostly through donations from charitable institutions.
I'm an activist of DVA, that is Delhi Vegans for Animal Liberation. We go to different parts of Delhi, malls, shopping areas. We talk to people, we educate them, showing video footages, we do follow-up, we invite them for the next events. We are inspired by activists in the West, so we try and do everything to reach out to maximum number of people.
FIAPO is the Federation of Indian Animal Protection Organizations. We are a network organization, we are a federation. We represent about 130 organizations that are working in India for the welfare, rights and protection of animals. We are also working with a lot of individual activists. So anybody who wants to do something to stand up for animals, in India, we have an inclusive federative approach. So we invite people to collaborate so we can work as a grassroots movement.
My name is Jaswant Modi. In 2018, I became the president of the Jain Center of Southern California, and that's a 2-year term which I will finish at the end of this year. Our Jain Center of Southern California became vegan in March of 2018.
I'm one of the founders with my wife of Animal Aid Unlimited. We came to India more than 20 years ago with the idea of helping. We started to realize that these animals, there was no group that was taking care of them. Started from just a piece of plastic on the ground, helping one animal. Before there was any cyber cafes, we have moved ahead faster than we ever expected. My daughter tells me we're now probably the leading NGO in India.
PETA stands for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Our motto is that animals are not ours to eat, wear, experiment on, or use for entertainment. We focus on the areas where the most numbers of animals suffer on an industrial scale. People can log on to our website and check out if their favorite cosmetic or household product company, making cleaners, detergents, that sort of thing, is testing on animals or not.
About 15 years ago, I left the UK, for a better life, easier life in Goa. But very soon I discovered there was very little help for stray animals, so started WAG, stands for Welfare for Animals in Goa. I did a lot of work with the cats and dogs, and then slowly started rescuing cows. And that's actually when I became vegan and realized the full horrors of the dairy industry.
Hi everybody, I'm at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary with the one and only Renee King Sonnen, and she is my hero. The night I went vegan overnight, I started praying to my meditation tree that I want to have a sanctuary near me. I want to be with the cows, I want to be with the animals. And then I met Renee. And every animal here has a name. They are treated with dignity and respect. And I always tell everybody, Renee's eyes live in mine. And when she sings, her voice echoes in my heart. And God's presence is always at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary.
Process of feeding Rowdy Girl, I began to get more and more connected to the inner rich lives of the cows. For whatever reason, I was taught that cows don't have feelings. What I was witnessing is not only do they have feelings, they have memories. They remember who the babysitter is going to be. They remember actually who their kids are.
If anyone chooses to be vegan in the school, it's our children. They decided, fine, let us stop eating our friend.
So I am here with Charlotte, my dear friend, who is going to be walking for 1 year for animal liberation.
Je marche pour les droits des animaux. Je marche pour qu'on puisse entendre leur voix, pour qu'ils soient libres, libérés de l'oppression humaine.
Like my teacher and guru has said, Dr. Shailesh Rao, when the East meets the West, not only India will be known as the land of Ahimsa, but in a non-violent world, the entire planet will be known as the land of Ahimsa.
सबका मालिक है हर जीवों में इंसानों को बनाया है सबसे ही ने फिर क्यों करते हैं जुल्म हो सब पे क्या पाते हो रुलाइने एक ना एक दिन मान लो कहना मिलेगी इसकी सजा तुम्हें सर्वश्रेष्ठ सर्वोत्तम इंसानियत का होता है एक कर्म अहिंसा परमो धर्म अहिंसा परमो धर्म अहिंसा परमो धर्म अहिंसा परमो धर्म सोचो तुम्हें जब कोई इस तरह से सताए तो कैसा लगेगा तुम्हें कोई यूं ही रुलाए तो नादानियां छोड़ के बात मेरी ये मानो तुम जैसे हो वैसे ही सारे हैं जीव जानो जीने दो इनको भी जैसे भी ये जीना चाहे दुनिया नहीं है किसी एक की पहचान जैसी करनी वैसी भरनी बात ये सब माने हैं कण कण में है रहता मालिक राज ये सब जाने हैं कोई नहीं तुम्हें देख रहा है यही तुम्हारा है भरम अहिंसा परमो धर्म अहिंसा परमो धर्म अहिंसा परमो धर्म अहिंसा परमो धर्म तुम कैसे भूल गए हो हम सबका मालिक है ये